Okay, good morning, everybody. This will be the last forum for 2025. There will be a 2-week break, and then forums will start up on January 4th. And the January 4th forum is going to be Milwaukee food waste, so that will be the topic. Thank you.
Hello, all my brave, courageous friends coming out in the cold. First of all, I want to thank you for being here, and I provided some chocolate snacks if you need a little nourishment to help us get through this chilly day. My name is Pat McFarland. My husband is Nick Bokas, and Nick is an immigration attorney. He's working for the Community Center for Immigrants. For 38 years, Nick was a public defender doing amazing work. And he's meticulous. He is meticulous. I see him working every day trying to improve his craft. So Nick is a first-generation American. His parents come from Greece, and so he's had this solidarity with people who are not born here. And so I'm going to ask you to please hold your questions and comments until the end. And I have his email address for anyone who wishes to send him more information. We have a lot of sign-up information here if you want to help us. And one of the things I'll be doing, I'm not an attorney, but I am a fundraiser. So I'm looking for people who enjoy having house parties, and we can raise some money for the Community Center for Immigrants. Thank you. This is my husband, Nick.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. So I want to talk about the deportation war, because that's what it is. It's a war against people who have come here for a better life. It's a war where families are torn apart, where people are being returned to face the dangers that they escaped from. There's no way to sugarcoat what's going on. Although Trump campaigned on a promise to deport criminal immigrants, it has become clear that Trump and his enforcement agenda is focused on all non-citizen immigrants in the United States, undocumented and documented. They are targeting green card holders. They are legal permanent residents. They're targeting temporary protected status populations. They are targeting students with visas. And they are even targeting immigrants who have been naturalized, attempting to denaturalize them. The vast majority do not have a criminal record at all. And those that do mostly have only traffic or minor misdemeanor nonviolent offenses. So things are changing day by day. I don't even know for sure if 2 families I go to Milwaukee District Immigration Office tomorrow will have their cases for a green card held or canceled. Naturalization ceremonies have been canceled nationwide, many of them. Folk Fair in Milwaukee this past year did not have a naturalization ceremony. First time ever that I'm aware of. There are 2 prongs of the Trump anti-immigration war. They are deportation, we use the term removal, and restricting admission. An important part of this war is being fought in the federal courts. I encourage you, if you're interested, to go to Litigation Tracker Immigration online. Litigation Tracker Immigration. There's more than 200 immigration-centered lawsuits in the federal courts across the country. They are challenging Trump's executive orders and actions related to immigration alone, including as an example. Their efforts to authorize immigration agents to enter houses of worship. Their efforts to speed up and broaden the scope of deportation, such as through expedited removal. Their efforts to withhold federal funds from sanctuary jurisdictions, and their efforts to make it harder for immigrants to get asylum in the United States. There are websites that I encourage you to go to. You can email me, I can give them to you, the actual websites, but Immigrant Legal Resource Center, I repeat, Immigrant Legal Resource Center, or the National Immigration Law Center, or the American Immigration Council. All of them provide up-to-date information on what's happening in the immigration area. Also, there is a podcast on WUWM that Patricia referred me to. I listened to it, and it's very good. It's called Status Pending. It's a podcast from WUWM, which we listen to a lot, and it breaks down the different ways that people come into this country and the hurdles that they are now having with the Trump administration. The episodes are on every Wednesday, but you can get them anytime. So, when I first heard about Trump's efforts or his plan to deport millions of people, I said, there's no way you can do that. Well, they are accomplishing, or trying to accomplish that. What is their capacity to deport? Patricia, can you give me some water? Yeah, or tea. Thanks. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Excuse me. Capacity to deport. There is a significant expansion of the mechanism to accomplish the mass deportation agenda. We all know about the big, beautiful bill, $170 billion for immigration enforcement. With control of Congress, Trump is able to get the billions of dollars to effectuate his deportation policies. Thank you, Pat. He's hiring thousands of immigration enforcement officers, diverting many thousands others from their normal duties in law enforcement to immigration enforcement. They've increased the number and the size of detention facilities, and the conditions are deliberately made deplorable. And I was just reading the other day in the New York Times that the Department of Homeland Security is signing contracts to buy additional 737s for deportation. One of the ways that they are finding these newly arrived immigrants is through racial profiling. The Supreme Court recently, in a case by the name of Vasquez Perdomo versus Nome, it was a 6-3 vote. It allowed racial profiling. It permits the detention of individuals based on how they look, their appearance, what language they speak, what work they do, and even where they happen to be. ICE is also building up its surveillance capacities. They're acquiring technologies to locate, to identify, and to monitor individuals by facial recognition. They monitor cell phones for location data, and they conduct social media surveillance, things that you would find in a police state. ICE is collaborating also with other government agencies, obtaining private information on immigrants and all of us, violating confidentiality through agencies such as the IRS, and accessing also state-level information through motor vehicle and voter registration databases. I just read also that the Transportation Security Administration is providing passenger lists to ICE to identify and detain travelers subject to deportation orders. Part of this policy of deporting people, immigrants, people that we want in this country, is through self-deportation. The Trump administration is imposing fines, filing lawsuits, and offering to pay money even to push immigrants to self-deport. Much of the funding to pay for people to self-deport is coming from funds that were previously used for refugee assistance. I want to repeat that. Much of the funding to pay for people to self-deport is coming from funds that were previously used for refugee assistance. The Trump administration is using family separation as a way to coerce immigrants to leave the country. In addition, as we know, they're transferring people, immigrants, to remote areas to separate them from family and community and from legal support in order to facilitate their removal or deportation. They're cutting off, of course, also public benefits to make it that much harder for immigrants. Overall, they're instilling fear in people. America's foreign-born population, I was just reading this too, is shrinking for the first time in a generation, in generations. It's a historic reversal that is driven by President Trump's sweeping immigration crackdown. Most of the decrease seems to be coming from deportation that's self-deportation. People choosing to leave because they are afraid and because they're being targeted. They're being targeted. The Trump administration has gone after the temporary protected status that many hundreds of thousands of people are in this country legally, and also humanitarian parole. Hundreds of thousands have come into this country legally from countries that are too dangerous for them to be in, and they're granted temporary protective status and humanitarian parole. They can stay in this country as long as dangerous country conditions continue. The Trump administration is stripping these recent immigrants of legal status by saying the countries they fled from are now safe, and setting a deadline by which they must leave or be out of status, and thereby deportable. For example, Trump has ended temporary protected status, TPS, for Afghanistan. And you can imagine how fearful these people are who are in this country, having to go back to Afghanistan. Ukraine is also slated to be on the list. Ukraine. So many of these immigrants who are in this country on TPS, on humanitarian parole, they've gotten married, they have children, they have jobs here, they have homes, and their TPS and humanitarian parole status is being ended. Actually, it's millions now. TPS and humanitarian parole have been a lifeline to millions of these immigrants, and that lifeline is being severed. These recent immigrants, many of them actually have been here for many years, have done everything by the book. They worked, they paid their taxes, they had no criminal histories, and they contributed to their communities. The Trump administration is also politicizing immigration courts. They are purging dozens of immigration judges. A large number of experienced immigration judges have been fired. Trump administration is asserting control over the immigration courts. The immigration courts are under the Department of Justice. They're not a third branch under the judicial branch. They are controlled by Trump and by Noam. So they can do this, hiring judges who will quickly deny cases to achieve their mass deportation goals. What kind of judges? These are military people, military lawyers. The Pentagon has authorized up to 600 military lawyers to serve as immigration judges. These are judges who will, I believe, quickly deny cases for asylum to achieve their mass deportation goals. All of these cases, I believe, are going to be appealed for legal error and other issues. Why? Because the judges who they're bringing in are not sufficiently trained, and they will be pressured to deport, notwithstanding the evidence to grant relief from removal. They are under intense pressure, and the percentage of people who've been granted asylum has gone down significantly. Also, there has been a dismantling of prosecutorial and judicial discretion in immigration enforcement. No consideration of an individual's circumstances, such as if an immigrant woman was nursing a baby, or if she or her child had a serious medical consideration. So these people, these immigrants, are not considered as people. The Trump administration is also threatening and attempting to withhold federal funds from sanctuary cities and states. Cities and states with sanctuary policies generally refuse to assist with immigration arrests and raids, or to continue to hold detained persons for ICE once their jail term is up. The Trump administration has stated that it will penalize sanctuary states and cities by revoking federal funding. Government grants, including FEMA awards, have been made conditional to compel states and cities to support federal enforcement efforts. That's why Milwaukee County was denied FEMA funds with the most recent flooding. The Department of Transportation issued notices threatening to withdraw transportation funding from states and cities that do not cooperate with federal immigration enforcement efforts. They're placing conditions on grants, including critical disaster relief and transportation funds, that Congress authorized. They already allocated this money to the states. If these new conditions do take effect, and they're being fought, states that do not comply risk losing hundreds of millions of dollars in funding for projects that range from emergency management and disaster recovery to infrastructure and transportation safety improvements. One argument against the Trump administration in this regard is that these funds have been allocated by Congress, and Congress has the power of the purse. The vast majority of the Trump administration's lawsuits against sanctuary jurisdictions remain pending in federal courts across the country. So we don't know how it's going to turn out. Communities across Wisconsin have pushed back on partnership agreements between local law enforcement and ICE that turn sheriff's departments into an arm of ICE. The latest that I saw or read is that only 14 Wisconsin counties have these agreements with ICE out of 72. I believe that's because of the public outrage and the turnout. Outrage that they're trying to coerce us into law enforcement against these immigrants. Well, we can be proud, I am, of Milwaukee County, that our county refused to cooperate with ICE in this regard. Recently, you may have read this, the Wisconsin Supreme Court accepted a case filed by the ACLU on behalf of immigrant rights group Voces de la Frontera, charging that it is illegal to put or keep people in jail after their sentence is served in order to hold them for ICE. There's other grounds also, but that's one of them. I'm optimistic as to the outcome of that case. Why? Because our Wisconsin Supreme Court has 4 progressive justices. The other thing that the Trump administration is doing is expanding or attempting to expand expedited removal, which allows immigration officers to summarily remove certain non-citizens from the United States without a hearing before an immigration judge. This is a key to their goal of quickly removing a maximum number of deportable non-citizens. When you have expedited removal, you don't have a trial. You don't have due process. Why? Deportation can be carried out in a matter of hours or just a few days. The individual does not see a judge. Immigration officers, rather than judges, make the final determination regarding deportation. Expedited removal does not allow for access to legal representation, witnesses, or a meaningful opportunity to present evidence and defenses. This is key to the Trump administration's efforts, and it is significant because there'll be a much larger segment of the immigrant population that's subject to expedited removal. Why? Because now they made it so that you can be anywhere in the country, not just on the border, anywhere in the country within 2 years of entry. You can be removed in an expeditious fashion. Also, because many of the programs like TPS, like humanitarian parole, are being ended, the numbers will grow. The numbers of people who are without legal status will grow. They do have legal status right now, but they won't once TPS status ends. For many of them, it has already ended. So the number of people in this country who were here in status legally have now become out of status and deportable. Millions of them. Due process does require that even these people have a hearing. It's in the Constitution. It's in the Fifth Amendment, the 14th Amendment. And it does say all persons. It doesn't say all citizens. So eventually, that's going to be decided by the United States Supreme Court. On November 22nd, 2025, just recently, last month, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, by a vote of 2-1, affirmed a lower court judge who had found that the Trump administration's policies violated the due process rights of immigrants who could be apprehended anywhere in the United States. I do expect that that will go up. We'll see. I expect that it will go up to the Supreme Court. We'll talk about that, which, of course, is also controlled by more conservative justices, 6-3, I would say, for sure. As far as refugees and asylees, green card holders, well, the shooting of National Guard members in Washington, D.C., the recent shooting, has led to a halt to all asylum decisions. There's 2.2 million immigrants waiting for asylum decisions or hearings as of August 2025. So they're all on hold. The shooting in D.C. is a pretext for Trump to stop many naturalization ceremonies. And this has affected thousands of immigrants who have waited for years. They've passed the English language test. They've passed the civics test. They've paid substantial amounts of money for the application fee. And they were ready to become naturalized as American citizens. We had 9 people, I should say 9 families, at the nonprofit I volunteer at, Community Center for Immigrants. 9 families who had submitted the appropriate forms, who had studied hard to take and pass the civics and English tests, whose naturalization ceremony was canceled. Green card applications have also been paused for 19 travel ban countries, including Afghanistan and Myanmar, or Burma, which is where most of the people that we represent at Community Center for Immigrants are from. There's going to be retroactive review and re-interview of anyone from 19 travel ban countries who got asylum or green card approved on or after January 20th, 2021. That was the day that Joe Biden was inaugurated. So that in the years that Joe Biden was president, all of those green card applications, all these people who've become even naturalized are going to be re-reviewed. There's hardly any refugees coming into the country now, with one significant exception, and that is white South Africans. It's absolutely astonishing. Thousands of refugees who already had their travel plans booked saw their plans canceled. Trump also suspended federal funding to all groups who assist refugees already in the United States, including helping them with housing and finding work. Constitutional rights, how about that? Due process, free speech, and deportation. The Fifth Amendment of the Constitution says that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. It doesn't say citizen, right? That's a fundamental argument against expedited removal. How about First Amendment free speech rights? First, let's talk about, briefly, those who are documented and those who are undocumented. Can the government deport student visa and green card holders? These are documented persons in the country for their views. Mahmoud Khalil, he protested his detention as unconstitutional retaliation for free speech and presented the question whether non-citizens, students or otherwise, legally present in the United States actually have the same First Amendment free speech rights as citizens. The answer so far is yes. There was a district court judge, I think he's from DC. He said yes, or Massachusetts. And Mahmoud Khalil has just been released. The case is still pending. It may end up in the Supreme Court as well. But I do think that people who are here lawfully, as students or otherwise, do have First Amendment free speech rights. How about if you're undocumented? If you're here without status, a non-citizen, particularly concerning immigration enforcement, it's unsettled. One side of the argument is that the First Amendment applies only to immigrants who enter illegally, who have legal status, and who have sufficient connection to the United States. The other side of the argument is that the First Amendment does not apply to undocumented immigrants. To date, from what I have seen, the Supreme Court has not ruled definitively on this question. Also, there was a poll recently by Marquette Law School, and it was saw in the New York Times. The immigration removal policy of Trump is disapproved by 55% of those people polled. 55%. Border security, 54% approve of the border security, but 55% disapprove of how he's going about to removing people. Alien Enemies Act. Trump invoked this 1798 law in an effort to deport immigrants who he claimed were members of a Venezuelan gang. A federal appeals court blocked President Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act to quickly deport Venezuelans. It was a 2-to-1 vote, and it rejected the administration's argument that there was an invasion of the United States by a foreign power. Anticipate that that case also will go up to the Supreme Court. Other points, briefly. The number of states where immigrant students can qualify for in-state tuition has dwindled since the Justice Department began suing states this year. They're reinstating programs to denaturalize citizens, people who came here, became citizens, but they're reinstating these policies to try to denaturalize them. How do they do that? They go into the file and they try to find any inconsistency and to say that person lied and it was a fraudulent naturalization based on fraud. Under other administrations, those who were targeted for denaturalization were Nazis and other war criminals trying to escape prosecution under assumed identities. Also, the U.S. Supreme Court recently accepted a case involving birthright citizenship for children born here of undocumented immigrants. I cannot imagine even this United States Supreme Court not sustaining the birthright citizenship that's clearly stated in the Constitution. The Trump administration is, how are we doing for time? Yes?
I think it's a good idea. He has a lot of information about churches, and I think it's really important in the limited time we have now to talk about how you can help.
Sure. Okay. Do that. Thank you, Patty. So, I'm going to skip the Alien Enemies Act and courthouse and churches. Okay, what can we do? There's many ways. There's many ways. So I'm just going to give one. To become an accredited representative, partial or full. Okay, so for many years, immigrants were coming into the country and they could not afford an attorney. And they needed to have some legal advocacy. So in Congress in 1958 decided to start this program called the Department of Justice Recognition and Accreditation Program. It allows people who are not lawyers, you have to not be a lawyer. And if you work with or volunteer with a nonprofit, then you can qualify to become an accredited rep. This can allow you to actually do many of the things that lawyers do, okay? And if you become a fully accredited rep, you can actually go to court in Chicago, in immigration court, and advocate just like a lawyer can. So how do you become an accredited rep? Well, can't be an attorney. You do have to do volunteer work or be a staff member of a Department of Justice recognized organization, nonprofit, like Catholic Charities or Community Center for Immigrants. You do that for a period of time, go through certain training, take seminars and so forth, and then you submit your application, and if you are accepted, then you can become a partial or a full accredited representative and pretty much do the same thing that lawyers can. When I went to law school, I didn't take any immigration. I don't know if they had any immigration courses back then, but that's not what made me knowledgeable on immigration law, law school, just because I'm a lawyer. There are people that I work with who know so much more. They're not lawyers, but they are accredited reps, like Caitlin Lewis, that I'll mention. She's the one who started, with her father, Mitch Lewis, started Community Center for Immigrants in 2021. I was at Outpost reading the Shepherd Express one day, and I read about this featured article about the Community Center for Immigrants, CCI. And wow, I was really drawn by that. So I contacted them, and that's where I do my volunteer work now. And we have a sign-up sheet for any of you who are interested in doing volunteer work or getting the newsletter every month. There's also 4 sets of documents that describe the kind of volunteer work you can do, okay? So there's 4 different kinds of volunteer work. How am I doing for time, Patty? Oh, okay, I got you. Okay. So anyway, let me just end. I want to say this because they're listening to this. Caitlin Lewis and her father, Mitch, I told you, started Community Center for Immigrants in 2021. We are very busy. We've had to hold up on new interviews of people. Phone is ringing off the hook, and we can get back to you after the new year, because we're so far behind on our work. But if you sign up, we can get back to you by email and let you know what you can do, or you let us know what you can do to help out. There's many other nonprofits also. There's Voces de la Frontera. You can volunteer for Catholic Charities, and there's other organizations too that are nonprofits.
And Michael knows a lot about Voces de la Frontera, and many of the church people are involved in this, and we will be gathering tomorrow. What are we doing tomorrow, Nick?
Yeah, tomorrow, gathering at the federal courthouse. Mike, you want to speak up to that real quick? Yeah.
Yes, so if you're familiar with the case of Judge Hannah Dugan, the trial starts tomorrow, and
Come here, Mike.
Hi, I'm Michael Pointer Mace. I am part of the Immigrant Solidarity and Action Committee here at First Church. Many people are gathering tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. in front of the federal courthouse in solidarity with Judge Hannah Dugan. This is going to be national and international news, and it is really an opportunity in Milwaukee for us to help shape the narrative and highlight many of the parts that Nick was just talking about how this case is emblematic of a larger issue around due process, our Constitution, and how it really affects everyone in Milwaukee, our neighbors who happen to be immigrants, but also those of us who may be in the United States after a couple generations. We all are being affected by the atrocities that Nick has been talking about, and it's so important that we show the nation and the world where we stand on this issue about due process and protecting our Constitution.
Thank you, Mike.
Temperature promises to be a balmy 15.
So we can open it up to any questions or comments. This is a group discussion. Yes, Deborah. Oh.
Sermon this morning is about hope in dark times, and I would hope that after a very realistic and a very sobering discussion, you would give us
Sure.
maybe 1 or 2 stories that offer some hope with your clients.
Well, I think the best thing is to exercise your First Amendment rights to speak out and to assemble. And, you know, that's how we ended the Vietnam War, by getting out in the streets and so forth. Also, I mentioned there's a lot of litigation going on. There are thousands of dedicated lawyers who are fighting this in the courts. So, as far as individual cases, we are trying to get as many people who are without status, or I should say, who are refugees, to get them naturalized or get them have their green cards. There's many thousands of refugees in this country. In fact, there's maybe 9 or 10 million people who are with green cards only, and they have not become naturalized. So these are the people now who are wanting to get naturalized, because once you're naturalized, you become a citizen, you're better protected. You're better protected. So the best thing I can say, what I do is I volunteer to help people in terms of becoming naturalized, become a citizen. It's so much harder to deport someone, to denaturalize someone who has become naturalized, as opposed to a green card. Green card is good, but become naturalized is the best. So there's a lot of folks who are volunteering to help educate these immigrants so they can pass their English tests, pass their civics tests, and so forth. So those are the kind of things that we can do in the trenches.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, two questions. One, I don't know if this is ever permitted. Are you able to stay and say the stuff that you weren't able to say?
Oh, sure, yeah.
For those who are really
Yeah, I can.
allowed?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the second question is, could you give us a rough breakdown? I think this is useful information to have in conversations with people who might, not know about these issues. What percent, roughly, of people who are being targeted are either criminals or illegal versus these naturalized, documented, green card holding people that are being targeted that you're discussing?
So, in our office and among people who are fighting the Trump agenda, we don't call them, of course, illegal. We call them undocumented. And there are millions of folks like that in this country. What number is, I think it's over 10 million. I don't know what recourse they have. Many of them cannot change their status to become documented. They came into the country not through a port of entry. They did not, many of them are working here. Many have had children, got married here, have homes here. So that was up to the government, the parties, the two main parties, to try to work out a solution. No solution was ever worked out. So now Trump is focusing on removing these people, these immigrants who've been here and tried to make a life for themselves. Yes. Yeah.
For data, like what percentage that you are seeing. The New York Times, in the past 3 or 4 days, had an article, and it looked at like 5 different places where people have been swept up, and over months and months. And how many of them turned out to actually have a criminal record?
Yes, how many? That's
A criminal record or a violent record.
Yes.
And it shows that in the end, I'm just speaking it all in one comment here, it was less than 5%.
Yes, that's so
All
important.
the rest were, some of them had no reason at all in any category to have been stopped. It's a wonderful set of little graphs, so go to the New York Times online.
Let me repeat that for those people online. So Sally just assisted us in the answer to the question. Fewer than 5% of the people, thanks Sally, fewer than 5% of the people who are being targeted have criminal record. So it's very small. So basically they're targeting a lot of folks who have no criminal record. Yeah.
That's this year, that's where that argument.
Yeah.
And I handed out Nick's email address. Please, he has all this stuff that he will send you, the whole presentation. Just email him at the Center, Community Center for Immigrants, Milwaukee.
So do you want me to just continue or no? Or, yes.
You mentioned volunteering, other than being a rep, what else do you have other volunteer slots for the center?
Yes, they're up here. There's 4 ways that you can volunteer. The sheets describe in detail what you would do. So yeah, I encourage you to look at them, Peter. Yeah, they're very good. Any other questions? Yes.
In terms of what's happened with our Supreme Court, is
The U.S. Supreme Court? Yeah.
is that a realistic opportunity? Could that ever happen in our lifetime? To expand it like they
Well,
talked about in the past?
well, the Trump administration. So this is a question about expansion of the expedited removal. Right now, that's what they are doing. They are targeting people throughout the country, not just on the border, who've been here for no more than 2 years. And those people, those immigrants, if they are apprehended, they are put in expedited removal. And they're removed without any kind of due process. So that's what's happening right now.
Right, but my question is where we have 6 conservative Supreme Court justices and 3, could the number of justices ever be expanded so that
Oh, the justice. Oh, sure it could. I don't think it'll happen, but it could happen. You mean they call it the court packing scheme that FDR tried to do? Yeah. Now that won't happen with Trump. Are you worried about Trump? We don't want Trump to do that, for sure. Yes, sir.
I heard that because of all the chaos, that actually less people are getting deported, as was the case with the Biden administration.
That was on Colbert the other night. He quoted like 685,000 were deported during the previous year, and year to date, it's only gonna be about 600. But then you mentioned self-deporting, those probably aren't in those numbers.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else providing training for services that CCI offered anywhere else to go since you're busy and you don't even want to hear this? So we do here. Is there any other, is MAPC providing any classes that?
I don't know about MATC, but you just go online and there's other nonprofits. I mean, there's CCI, but there's also other nonprofits in Milwaukee that you can help. Yes, I don't know if they may be seeking volunteers. I know that they have quite a few of sisters. These are Catholic nuns who are volunteering. So I don't know if they are open to non-Catholics. I don't know. But there are other nonprofits in the city that you can contribute, do volunteer work. Especially, I think, helping people study for the civics tests, the American history tests, and developing their English language skills. That really, because they have to pass that test, most of them have to pass that test, unless they get an exemption, to become naturalized. And I've been through those interviews, and they can be very, very intense. And the people who are being questioned, they're nervous. They're really scared and nervous. So the more they get trained and educated, the better they'll do, and the better chance they have to pass the test. Some do not pass the test, and then you get a second chance to take the test. If you fail again, then you have to apply again, start all over again. But it's better to wait until you're ready to take the test and then to become naturalized. So you feel bad for all these people who've worked hard to get to the point where they can get naturalized and have the ceremony canceled, and they're still in limbo. I don't know what they're going to do. Yes, Mark.
Can you say something about the $100,000?
Sure.
Is that just a one-time charge, or is that?
It's a one-time charge. The question was about H-1B visa. For instance, people wanted to come here to work. Okay, it used to be minimal. Now it's like $100,000. Sure, that's what they did, and so you have to pay that kind of money to come here to work, because Trump believes that people who come here to work are taking jobs away from Americans, which is not true.
Are people who are already here on an H-1B status, does their fee stay the same, or is there now an
Yeah, no, they don't have to pay anything. Just newbies coming. Yeah. So shall I continue and finish up? Okay, I'll do that. I mentioned the alien enemies. Yeah, I did that. Quickly. Yeah, sure. I'll get into that. So So they are reducing or eliminating bond. Now there's. Okay, so there was an elimination of the ability to bail yourself out, or to have someone bail yourself out. That got overturned recently, but that was an effort by the Trump administration to get people to self-deport. Because if you're in custody and for weeks or months and you can't bail out because it's not allowed, you're more likely to self-deport. And that's what their effort has been. That's been overturned, and so I think most people now can get bailed out waiting for immigration court, so they can be out. And that reduces the chance that they will self-deport. They're also doing neighborhood checks, so that if they are targeting someone and they know where the person lives, they can go and talk to neighbors to try to develop a case against that person. That takes a lot of effort, and it takes manpower. I don't know how much that will be utilized, but that is something that they have decided to do. Also, during interviews of people for green card or people for naturalization, they are scrutinizing people more carefully, more closely, to a ridiculous point where they can ask the question, who's the President of the United States? So I heard this from a panel in Chicago at a convention on immigration, and one of the panelists said that their client was asked that question by the immigration officer. Who's the President of the United States? Donald Trump. Who's the President of the United States? Donald Trump. Donald J. Trump. And that was marked against the person, okay? So that's, Patricia was there too, okay. So people also are being detained during check-ins at ICE. We know, we've read about that. Also while they're making court appearances, as happened in the Hannah Dugan case. And they're doing this because ICE cannot achieve the quota of arrests that the higher-ups, the Trump administration wants, because it's just a small percentage of people who are immigrants who have criminal records. So that's why they're going after so many others. Okay, as far as the courthouse, and then I'll get into churches. I'm just going to read it. Courthouses are generally considered to be public places, giving ICE and other law enforcement agencies the right to enter the courthouse public places. While specific areas like judges' chambers may be restricted, as they are not open to the public, If the general public can enter and access hallways, so can ICE, without a warrant. Armed with a judicial search or arrest warrant, ICE can enter, search, and arrest anywhere in the courthouse, even in judges' chambers, that the judicial warrant specifies. How about an administrative warrant? Unless there is an agreement between local government and ICE for ICE to stay out of courthouses, or unless there's a law specifically restricting ICE in courthouses, there are states that have that, ICE can arrest a targeted or a named undocumented person in public solely with an administrative warrant, even though doing so will have a chilling effect on immigrant people who need to come to the courthouse. Okay, we know about the Hannah Dugan case. Mike just spoke about that. Places of worship. The highest risk places of worship involve ethnic immigrants who are from south of the border or Muslim, I would say. Hispanics, Latinos, Muslims, and those places of worship are the highest, I would say, targets. The highest risk activity, so I don't envision that most places of worship are targets, but places where there's a lot of recent immigrants or who are worshipers, I think that would be the most likely. There's very little, if any, evidence of ICE going into places of worship. But in the cases that I've read where they have arrested people, it's outside in the parking lot on the way to place of worship. Okay, so the highest risk activities of worship, places of worship, are, as an example, offering shelter or housing to undocumented immigrants while concealing them from law enforcement. We don't want to do that. Or transporting undocumented immigrants in a way that prevents their existence or whereabouts from being discovered. Okay, that's pretty self-evident. It's a lower risk for places of worship to minister to people regardless of their immigration status or citizenship, including providing food and housing to those in need without inquiring about their status in the United States. That's important, and not to ask them. And if you find out that they are undocumented, it makes it harder then to minister to them or help them. That could be considered harboring. It is certainly appropriate to welcome all to a faith community, but without asking about immigration status. You don't want to ask about their status. Another key legal issue is whether immigration enforcement actions can take place in houses of worship. There's currently lawsuits that have been filed claiming that the Trump administration policy regarding arrests in places of worship infringes on the First Amendment, right to, practice your religion, worshipers. Places of worship concerned about ICE showing up should, I think, consider it designated private and public areas through just having a little sticker that says private in the certain offices or places in a place of worship. As ICE then can be on notice not to go into private areas without a judicial warrant. Whether an area of a house of worship is public or private is going to depend on how that area is used and whether there's a reasonable expectation of privacy in that area. A house of worship lobby, for instance, is likely public. A house of worship office that cannot be entered is private. There's a number of lawsuits that have been filed challenging the policy that allows ICE agents to conduct enforcement actions in houses of worship. Generally, the lawsuits argue that this practice impinges on the First Amendment right to freedom of religion. Among the arguments supporting the faith groups is that the new Trump policy violates the First Amendment, guarantee of religious freedom and assembly, because a lot of people are not coming to church because of fear. And so they're losing the right to religion as well as assembly. They claim that the Trump administration policy disrupts congregational activities and causes fear among attendees and worshipers. And that does lead to decreased attendance. The lawsuits also contend that the policy, yes, sir.
My question goes back to the Hannah Dugan case and the
Yeah.
fact that she invoked the chief judge, chief Milwaukee County judge, in establishing a policy for, and it doesn't seem as though that has happened.
No.
Seen a public announcement.
No, this is regarding the Hannah Dugan case, and Carl Ashley, who's the chief judge, as far as I know, from what I've read, there's still no policy regarding ICE and the courthouse. There is a policy in many states, in some states, I should say, where ICE is agreed not to enter. For instance, in Illinois, they have that as a law, and they've worked it out with ICE that if they're going to arrest someone, they're going to arrest someone outside the courthouse, maybe on the way or coming out. So I don't know why we don't have that kind of policy here. I don't know how that's going to impact on the Hannah Dugan case, but I know that her defense team is going to claim that that she was simply following the chief judge's directive and told the ICE people to go and check with the chief judge. That's where that stands now. So, okay.
Is there any possibility of appealing to him too?
Well,
It's important to have a policy that
yeah.
certainly prevents this from happening, or at least makes it less likely this would happen again.
I know that he's in the hot seat. He is one of the witnesses that the prosecution's going to call. I don't know what he's going to say. He's torn. He's in real hot seat. There should have been a policy, and there was no policy. In effect, it's been in limbo for a long time. So I just don't know. We'll have to follow day by day as the trial goes on. I think the media will be allowed to report on it. We'll see. Carl Ashley, yeah, I know. Yeah, a lot of people are upset with him that there's no policy. This is going on for months now, too, where there's just no policy. Okay, so that's basically it. I think it's prudent for places of worship to assume the worst and to prepare accordingly with appropriate signage outside. I think there should be a sign outside somehow telling ICE this is something to tell them that they're not welcome here, or that if you're going to enter, have a judicial warrant, something to that effect. And I think there should be some kind of privacy notices inside so that if ICE does come with an administrative warrant, they cannot enter into private areas. Okay, that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, I want to thank all of you for coming out in the cold. It was really great to have you. We do have hope, and one of the ways we have hope is being part of this church and all the solidarity work we're doing. And again, feel free to volunteer. I hope you got Nick's email address. He will send you all kind of information. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, too.